Tig, how pathetic is it to play board games by yourself? By yourself. This is now, mind you, this is a social activity that people play together. But then to sit down by yourself and play board games solo, how is that sad?
Okay, as a person of my age, it is very odd to think of playing a game by yourself, because I don't think that was even like a thing when we were kids. You couldn't play Monopoly by yourself or
It actually was, but it was rare.
Okay, yeah, so super rare, because I can't think of. I mean, I'm sadly playing like Parcheesi or Yahtzee by yourself or some
Most
kind of
games aren't made for
right.
For playing.
So I mean, yeah, like
Right.
you're not going to play Trivial Pursuit by yourself.
But right, I mean the idea of board games is
Chutes and
supposed to-
Ladders.
It's supposed to be right. It's this thing that you bring together.
Yeah.
with
A
other
board
people.
game is sitting around. The power goes out, or it's a weekend, and you're playing board games. Yeah, there is a sadness to seeing a fella just sitting at the table by themselves playing a board game alone.
Pathetic. This is, of course, not a loaded question, or maybe a trick question, or it's a misleading question, because as you know, I'm a big fan of solo board games. I love solo board games. My enjoyment of them has only grown because
Of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the pandemic was certainly one of the initial kind of like sparks to explore that world further, and I think that was the case for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I noticed,
think so.
And yeah, I noticed in the board game community just this sudden explosion of interest in solo board gaming for obvious reasons, and we even did a couple of pandemic videos. At the time, where I was talking about, Sprawlopolis was one from Button Shy Games, a little card-based game, which is somewhere in our board game playlist. You'll see my hobo beard. I think I had the hobo beard in that one, and certainly I think we did one too for Sherlock Holmes.
Yes,
the Sherlock Holmes game, which though you can, and I have played with multiple people as well, it turned into a few very fun like family nights of trying to solve the mysteries. I bought it specifically for me to solve myself.
All Sherlock, no Watson.
That's right. Solo game. So, yeah, I actually think that solo board games are incredible, and I probably never would have thought that, because if you would have asked me years ago, I would have actually said the thing that I was tongue-in-cheek asking at the beginning, which is, playing a board game by yourself? Like, how sad is that, dude? Come on.
Yeah, ironically, I think you own the most solo games out of anybody I know at this point.
That would make sense. I mean, you've run in some board game circles, so you probably have some friends who have some very sizable board game collections.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm actually surrounded by a bunch of them right now, so that like. So I can make recommendations to people. So for instance, the easiest and quickest way to get into some quick, fast solo gameplay are the folks at Button Shot Games, who incidentally are only just down the road from us out of Collingswood.
Are they? They
Yeah.
make their games there?
They are
At least they develop the games there.
Well, they sign a lot of games, so they're a publisher.
Oh,
they're not a designer, though. They do have a designer there who has created some of the games, but they publish games, and their whole specialty, which we talked about in Sprawl, but their whole specialty are what they call wallet games, and they're just these tiny little games that come in these little wallet fold things, and each game is usually just 18 cards, and that's it. That's the entire game.
It's funny because of the way that they're set up. It makes you think like, I picture like Eric walking down the street one day, and you got nothing to do, and it's lunchtime, and you look around, and you just pull that out of your back pocket and start playing on a table.
That's exactly it. I mean, I got a bunch of them here, a bunch more elsewhere. I've been particularly addicted to Food Chain Island recently.
Food Chain Island, which is this absurdly, it's incredibly simple and also addictive. It's cool. 18 cards as usual, and every card is an animal in the animal kingdom. Oh, okay.
An animal, and they all have numbers, right? What the numbers are 0 through 15. And so you lay out the cards in a 4x4 grid. 2 of the cards go on the side. They're sea creatures. And so you have this grid of 4 cards, 4x4 cards. And your goal is to turn them all into one stack. or as few stacks as possible. One stack is the ultimate goal. A large number animal can only eat you condense them by having animals eat adjacent animals. They can only eat an animal that is 1, 2, or 3 numbers lower than them.
Okay.
So it becomes a puzzle. You deal it out, and it's basically it's a numbers puzzle.
It's kind of like solitaire in a weird way.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
like in a more complicated way.
So
some rules, you use some cards.
You.
How long does the game last though? It only being 15 cards. Like, does the game end very? Like, are there times when the game just like you're playing for 30 seconds or a minute and you're like, I'm stuck, I can't go?
Not that fast, but if you play poorly, I mean, you can run into a wall pretty fast.
Okay.
If you really think out all your moves, because you have to, for reasons I'll explain in a second, you really have to think out all your moves ahead of time if you want to like do super good. And if you do that, a game might last 15 or 20 minutes or so. Though I've been banging out games in like 5 or 10 minutes usually.
Oh, okay. So the games will only last like.
Oh yeah, when I'll sit down and play, I'll deal out and play, and I'll do like 3 or 4 games in a row.
Oh, okay.
And kill 20, 30 minutes that way.
That's kind of cool.
Because it's not just the numbers with the cards, right? Because you're like a 15 can jump on the 13 and then blah blah blah, and it becomes a puzzle because the grid is laid out in this semi-random way. But each animal also has a specific ability that when the predator eats the prey, you have to follow the instructions that are on that card.
All right.
So I don't have my glasses on, so this will be.
Jesus
I'm not
Christ.
even going to bother trying to read them, but it'll.
Jesus.
Because I won't be able to see them without my glasses.
You need a flashlight.
So like it'll be something like when this particular animal eats another, then you move one other animal 2 spaces.
Oh, all right.
Or like the bat, I know is one. When the bat eats something, you can then relocate the bat anywhere else on the board. Some will be like the next predator has to move diagonally in order to eat.
Okay.
Where typically you're not supposed to. Or the next predator has to move 2 spaces and jump another animal in order to eat. So that adds all these wrinkles.
Yeah.
Because you're not just stacking the numbers.
Yeah, so it could change. It changes every time you play, basically.
Yeah, and it becomes important in the order that you're doing things in, because it can have this like chain reaction, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And then you have the 2 sea creatures on the side that are basically like sort of special abilities that you can use to override some of those cards. I think one of them just lets you relocate an animal to anywhere else, and
it's like wild card in a way.
Sort of. It just lets you move it anywhere. So like, let's say you have 2 things that you want this one to be able to eat that one, you could just relocate it so that to enable you to do that. And then the other one just lets an animal eat another regardless of how much lower that it is. Because usually you can only be 3 numbers lower, but it could be anyone. It's a really simple premise, but super addictive, super fun. And all these games we talked about, Sprawlopolis, Insurmountable, it's about climbing a mountain. Which is
climbing.
Cool. Rove, where you're like a little rover robot and you have to do repairs and stuff while you're on an alien planet. Sprawlopolis, we talked about Tussie Mussy, which is a
sounds very like mansion-y.
Gorgeous artwork, and it's like a flower shop game. Flowers and herbs and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. They're fun, and come on, like it's not only it's local, but look at these fun.
I was gonna say, I know it tickles your collectible itch. It tickles your collectible. I don't
know that it tickles my collectible itch, but
in the sense of like, do you feel like, oh, and I got this one and this one and this one and this one.
I do love that there are these little things, and they have like expansions and stuff, and I'm waiting for a big package to come in from them because they just had a Kickstarter for one that I was really interested in, that I'm getting a bunch of stuff. But I love they're a lot of fun.
I think they're interesting too because most people play games on their phone. If you think about it, you play board. You say, "Oh, playing a board game or whatever." But there's a lot of games on your phone that you're playing that are kind of like set up like that are one player. You're just playing against yourself.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of it not being a phone game. Like you're kind of physically doing something instead of just like on your phone playing the game.
Well, that's one of the things that kind of started to draw me towards solo board gaming. The really great board game channel, Shut Up and Sit Down, did an episode once a couple of years ago, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, about solo board games. And one of the things that they kept bringing up in a joking way, a winking way, saying, we know people are going to ask in the comments, why not just play a video game? I guess their running gag in the video was that they never answer that question. They don't even address it. But it is a valid question. Why not just play a video game? But for me, it's kind of like, so that I'm not sitting in front of a fucking screen.
Yeah.
To get away from the screen. Like I work on
every episode.
It's gonna be a thing. I work on a screen all day. I just.
You want to get away from it. It's like it's like reading a book instead of.
I like that there's something tangible, there's something in your hands, you're physically doing something. But ultimately, and that was the realization I had not too long ago. He's like, wait a minute, when people do crossword puzzles or Sudoku or Word Finder and all that, they're just doing a solo puzzle, which is what these, that's what these are. It's the same thing.
Yeah, for a while I was doing Sudoku just to, like you said, just to kind of like be sitting in a corner, figuring stuff out on with a pencil and a piece of paper, just kind of
a little something like
instead you could play on a phone, but there's something like it takes away from it in some way. Like there's something, like you said, there's something tangible. I guess it's because you're like working with. It feels like you're doing something. Where if it's on the phone, it kind of takes away from it in some way.
Yeah, I like kind of getting away from that, getting away from like being online or a screen or whatever. It makes it feel a little more like it should, which is an escape from your day-to-day grind. Like if you're on whether you work or you're on the phone texting all day or whatever it is, like playing a board game by yourself or puzzle game by yourself kind of is gets you away from that.
Yeah.
In a way that I find very pleasant. And there's been a bunch that I've been playing recently.
So what are some other one person games you've been playing other than cards?
Larger ones, which are a lot of fun. I think we were gonna do a video on this at one point, but I don't think we ever did. Is the game Under Falling Skies? It's a fantastic game. One day we'll do a complete video on this one, but I've told you about this one before. It's kind of a cross between Space Invaders and XCOM. As a solo board game, you have. I
like the setup of it. I remember when you set it up. It's kind of like an arcade style looking. It's like Space Invaders or something.
It's totally right out of Space Invaders. You have this big mothership at the top that's dropping UFOs down onto cities, and you have this base down at the bottom that you have to control and manipulate. You're rolling dice. And the dice go in different rooms of your base in order to trigger whatever that base will do. And your goal is to get your research high enough so that you can destroy the aliens. Right. But in the meantime, you're shooting them down, and you're trying to generate income, and you're excavating the base so that you can open up more rooms to use. And
isn't there like a countdown or something, or there's a certain amount of moves you can make or something?
Yeah. There's two different countdowns. One is, as the UFOs that are coming down, if you don't shoot them down in time, if they hit your base, your base takes damage. And once it takes so much damage, done. Yeah. And the mothership moves down one every turn.
Okay, I remember that.
It's just getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And once it reaches a certain point, about halfway down the big board that you lay out, done. Game over. So yeah, you have a limited amount of time in order to do this.
Pressure.
It has an awesome dice mechanic where you're rolling 5 dice each turn in order to put them in the various rooms that trigger things or build things or whatever. 3 of the dice are gray, 2 of them are white. And you have to place the die down one at a time. Every time you put a die down, like let's say you put down a 3, the UFO that's in that column comes down 3. So big numbers can be helpful because like you might want a big number to generate a lot of energy or whatever, but it also means that UFO is going to come down faster. Right. And then the wrinkle is every time you place a white die, any unplaced die you have to re-roll. So part of your strategy becomes what order am I going to place these die in, because it's going to trigger re-rolls. Like you might have a plan in place, but your plan can't stay for that turn because when you put a white down, they get re-rolled. So like part of the strategy becomes managing the dice too. It's a really fun game. I
think it's pretty popular too. I've heard people talk about.
Yeah,
like outside of you, I've heard people talk about that game.
Yeah, it gets great reviews. It's very There's actually a print and play version, so you don't have to get the box version, though it's pretty affordable. But you can actually just go to, I'm not really sure where the print and play is available, actually, now that I think about it, but where you could just print it out on your own and play it on your own. But the box version actually comes with a full campaign that you can play through, which
that's
is cool.
cool.
So you go through a storyline.
Yeah.
With like it has little comics to and as you progress through the story, it adds new rules and wrinkles and stuff as you go on, which is cool. It's fun. I enjoy that one. There's
Oh, he's got another one. He's gonna whip out another one.
I get another one. Oh,
Oh,
wait,
this one looks heavy.
You mentioned collectibles before. I got this in the mail the other day. Another addition to my collectible role-playing book collection.
Oh, what's that?
Roses of the Black Wood. It's from the Middle Earth role-playing game.
Oh, you got another Middle Earth one.
Yeah, so this has to go into these
I didn't think you were gonna get those anymore.
No, I've been getting them. Yeah, these I have to haul down to the storage facility to put them in. So
Put them in the vault.
Another really good one, and any board game aficionado is going to be familiar with the name of this one because it's now like hailed as one of the great games of all time. But this is sort of their introductory version. It's like less than $40, which is insane given how much is in the box. But the great thing, one of the big reasons why I got it is because you can play solo. There's full solo rules. And Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion.
Gloomhaven.
This is big hefty
Jesus.
box. Gloomhaven is a tactical fantasy combat game, basically, but you have a full storyline that you play through, like this full lengthy campaign. Like there's probably, I would estimate, like somewhere at between like 40 to 60 hours to play through.
Oh my god!
Like the story just in that, and that's the small.
Is it
one.
exclusively one person, or you could play?
You can play cooperatively. So you can play it solo or up to 4 players. Though the Jaws of the Lion version, I think, actually is I think this Jaws of the Lion version supports a full four players as well. So yeah, it can also be played.
Oh, that's cool.
Cooperatively as well. I got it specifically for the solo play, but yeah, you could. The whole reason why I wouldn't play this one cooperatively though is like it's a long freaking game.
Yeah, I guess it'd be the kind of thing where you have to keep coming back every week. It has to stay set up. Because
both you and I have like been involved in gaming groups and stuff like that. Like to sustain that stuff over a long period of time is difficult in person.
Yeah, in person it is.
Because we've kept our D&D group going for a while, but that's only because we play online.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine, especially I'm assuming that would have to be stay set up in some capacity. Like
you can like rebox it. It doesn't have to stay out.
Oh, okay. But still, you could, all of a sudden 2-3 weeks go by, and then they got someone. Then you're trying to get everybody back to play that first week.
Like the one thing I do like about it.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Oh God, it's the air suction was keeping the
because that box is so deep.
It is though. So like one thing that I do like about it, rather than a map and things that you have to leave laid out, is the scenario book has the maps just printed right in the book.
Oh man!
And the scenarios right in the book, so that like that's your map. That's where you're fighting. That's where the fight's coming.
And right on the.
Here's all the information. Yeah, so you just
lay that down.
Lay that on the table.
That's a good idea.
So there's not actually a board with this game. This is the board, and it changes based on what your scenario is that you're fighting in.
You know what it reminds me of?
Don't do it.
Reminds me a little bit of Catan. Kind of has a little bit of a feel like Catan.
I was going to look up the other day to see if there's solo rules for Catan. I don't know if there's solo. I mean, obviously you can get video game versions and play solo.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if there's a lot. What's happening? I'm seeing now is a lot of games they're creating like solo versions of the rules.
Yeah, because they know now that's becoming popular, so they're trying to.
Yeah.
They need to make a solo version of Life.
That would be.
You just drive your car around.
A lonely game.
Yeah, just lonely.
Life Incel Edition, where you just sort of drive around like. I have 2 others that I'm excited to play, and you'll be familiar with these because I inherited these from you.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to these 2 mystery games.
Both were good. The harder one was better.
So
Death at the Dive. No, the boardwalk one was actually was good.
Yeah. So explain a little bit what these are all about.
They're basically a murder mystery game. Again, you could play them solo or you can play with a group. I played them with my family, so it was like a night of trying to figure out a crime. So basically, they give you a whole bunch of stuff in the box, high quality stuff too. Like, I was kind of shocked that the newspaper, there'll be a newspaper clipping and it's on a newspaper with all the stuff, or there'd be an envelope with like a code on it, or printouts of receipts and things that are actually printouts of receipts. So it's like,
it's on like the thermal paper.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So you're like, oh, okay, this is like, so when you have it spread out all over the table, you actually feel like some private dick that's trying to.
That's all. Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the things that I love about like the tangibility of a board game. That's what's
if it was just on pieces of paper, you'd feel like, okay, I'm just doing whatever. And the cool thing about that is you have to always work your way. You're trying to figure everything out. And everything does have meaning. Like at first, when I first played it, I was like, "Am I wasting my time reading all this crap? I don't understand." But then when you figure it out, you're like, "Oh, okay, there were clues in there, so I could have found my way there that way."
And is there like a timer, or like
Nope.
so you how do you know you're done?
You work your way toward, at least in these two, you work your way towards something that's locked.
Yeah, because it's a whole series. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I looked them up after you gave them to me, and I was like, oh wow, there's like
lots of different.
Yeah.
You basically work your way towards, like, I think one of them has a like a zip-locked bag that has a code on, like a 3-number code. So while you're trying to figure out the crime, you're also trying to figure out how to get into Susie's thing that she left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you crack that open, then there's more information, and you're like, oh, like, oh, this was that thing this makes the connection. And then when you think, it's like Clue. It's like when you think if you think you got it, if you think you know who this is,
okay,
then you open the envelope.
So it's similar to the Sherlock series then, where because the Sherlock Holmes games are very similar in that there isn't a clock, there's not a timer, it's basically like when you decide you're ready to make the call.
Yeah, that's what this is.
The only thing with this, and I don't know, maybe it's the same with that, like with the Sherlock Holmes. This is tough because I'm behind a drum kit here. People can't see it, but I'm behind a drum kit. But yeah, with the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective series, which, as I mentioned in our previous video, there's like 10 cases in every one, and there's I think 4 or 5 different editions of this. The amount of things that you do detract from your score, and you're trying to beat Sherlock. You're trying to do better than Sherlock. So technically, winning means doing better than Sherlock, though it's kind of universally accepted that like nobody
cares. You're just trying to solve crimes.
Yeah, nobody cares because you can't beat Sherlock because like you have to do such an absurdly small number of things. Like you talk to 2 people and read 2 newspaper articles and
but that's ridiculous because realistically, if you're trying to solve a crime, you want as much. You're trying to find as much evidence as possible because in your head you're trying to. I'm going to put this guy away forever. So I'm going to solve this crime and this is all the evidence for it. Whereas if you're only getting one bite, I did it in one. That sort of seems counterintuitive to what most people are. Yeah.
Plus, I know like with this one, even if you've got tons of the clue, it's challenging. These are really challenging
cases.
So forget trying to beat Sherlock. You can go all out and like do everything, and it's still a lot of them are still going to be quite challenging to piece together because they have things like just like in those where you'll have a newspaper. That's the newspaper of the day. In this instance, though, the newspaper is just filled with just nonsense that is meaningless.
Right.
And sometimes you're combing the entire paper for the most obscure clue, like a person whose surname is the same as the surname of somebody.
Oh, it's like that
in the case, and then having to figure out like who that is and what their relationship is, and all that. They're very challenging, but to me, that's what makes them worthwhile. You can usually get those for maybe $40-$50 a piece, I think. And given that like there's 10 cases in a box,
that's cool.
And any one case will take you all night. I mean,
because with that, it's just once you figure it out, you're done.
Yeah.
So it's not.
There's not there's no elements of randomness to it where you can like reset it and have a slightly different experience.
Because once it's, I mean, you just know who it is.
Yeah.
Or the certain double. Yeah, you can't. Once you know who it is, I feel like you can't.
Yeah, unless you have like a shitty memory, like I
mean,
there's nothing.
Which is possible. But I think if you waited 2 years and you didn't remember, I think the clues would come back to you. Like I feel like you'd play it and be like, oh, I remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it won't be as difficult probably as Sherlock then, but it's fun
It sounds like
because
it sounds like the tangible aspect is better than Sherlock too. Sherlock is mostly about reading entries in like the clue book, basically. When you'll go to some, to someone's place to interview them, and then you read the entry to get the clue. It's a lot of note taking and stuff. I like the fact that this has all props.
Yeah, this more is like you'll find yourself at some point, which I ended up doing. Like I got like receipts in my hand, but then I also have like a flyer for a concert in my other hand, and I'm like, but I'm reading it, but she needs to be in this one. Where's that paper? Where's that receipt again? Let me check that receipt again.
That's super cool.
Yeah, or you'll find a code somewhere, and you'll be like, oh, what the fuck is this code? And you have to decipher how the code works because you're trying to figure that out, and it is fun. It makes it fun, but I think the time on it is only 60 minutes or something. They say.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
which it took us longer with 4, especially when you play the first one because you really don't know.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Well, because these games are so sort of freeform in nature.
Yeah, so you're like...
It's literally like, here's a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Work your way through it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing those, especially because I love detective games. I like stuff like that. I'm definitely looking forward to playing them. And then, obviously, there's the other big solo game series that I've been playing, because we will be playing it cooperatively in just a few hours. We have Transformers Chris is showing up here, and we are continuing a campaign we're doing. But I'm
excited.
I'm also playing them solo, and this is a whole game series.
Jesus, if I wish you all could see this.
Oh yeah, the
chair filled with games.
So the first one in the series is The Valley of the Dead King. It's part of the Hexplore It series. Hexplore It.
Oh, like
Hexplore It, like hexes, little hexes,
like Catan. Continue.
I've seen a lot of reviewers who one of their complaints is the name is silly. It's a dumb name, and it's like, I mean, I guess sure. I mean, yeah, it's a silly play on words or whatever, but it's
who cares?
Like I saw a couple who actually they felt they needed to deduct points because they didn't like the name.
Well, this is also coming, not probably the same person, but you also told me that there was someone that complained that the figures are actually figures in the game because he wanted them to be just a wooden block.
Yes, he doesn't like figures.
Deducted points in the sense to take points off because it wasn't a wooden block.
Yeah, like that was a complaint. It was a complaint.
So, I mean, I could see why someone would.
Yeah, it's weird. So, like, the Hexplore games, and there are 4 of them out right now. The Valley of the Dead King is the first. The second one is the Forest of Adramon. The second is the Sands of Shirax, and the third is the Domain of Mirza Nocta. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right.
Are you trying to cast a spell?
Actually, wait. I'm here guessing the name, and it's literally sitting in front of me. The Domain of Mirza Nocta. Yeah. There's a 5th one that's on its way out. Plus, there's expansions and blah blah blah. And these are basically. They're kind of sandbox adventure campaigns in a box that you could play solo or cooperatively. You have a wealth of sort of character classes, as if imagine Dungeons and Dragons and other games like that.
Almost an overwhelming amount.
Oh, huge amount.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think the first game comes with something like 24 of them, and each one adds more. And then a whole wealth of character races. And again, it's like your halflings and your goblins and your trolls and all that sort of thing. But then also a lot of very more unusual ones.
Yeah, I think one of the characters I'm using is some kind of ogre tree thing.
I thought, aren't you playing a half giant, or no? Maybe not. I thought you were a half.
It's some kind of tree looking. It's not like an ent, but it looks like an ent. But I'm also a giant. I was like the 2.
Oh yeah. Your class is some sort of like a tree wrangler or something like that.
Something weird.
But you take these 2 things and you combine these 2 things, the race and the class, and then there's some other ways to fully to further refine it. But that's the basics. Race, class, they go together. You add the stats up. Boom, you have your character. Very easy to quote unquote create a character because it's like 2 seconds. You just decide on the combination that seems interesting to you, and then you have this hex map that gets laid out. have these quest cards that give you quests to go on. You have what they call circumstance cards, which are basically like when you're out wandering around, things will happen. You'll run into monsters, or you'll run into a flash flood, or you'll catch a disease or whatever. And as you're going around with your people, you have to make sure you have enough food to survive. So you're managing your food. You're going from city to city, all while like in the first one at least, while the dead king is
going town to town, taking over each town.
Yeah, there's this main villain, the Dead King, who is going from city to city, taking them over, and he's basically the ticking clock. He's the timer on the game, because as he captures each city, once he captures all 6 cities, there's 6 in the game. Once he gets to the 6th, he comes after your party, and you have to have a final showdown with him. And every city he captures, he gets faster.
It's been a lot of fun. Like, I'm glad because we missed a week because we couldn't get here, but I was so excited to come back tonight to just play because it's been a lot of fun to play. It's like a simple D&D.
Yeah, it's very open-ended
with its extra components like that aren't part of D&D. So it's just sort of this fun little, and playing with the 3 of us has just been fun because it's sort of like a
You're making like those decisions together because it's all cooperative, and because the map is random, which is great. So it's a little different every time, and because it's literally just sort of a sandbox that you can wander around in, we find ourselves making decisions like, well, what should we do? Go over and do these quests next, or actually, there's this boss over there. Let's go see if we can beat this boss monster.
There's a shrine. Should we like head to the shrine because that has like secret stuff? Should we go?
We'll go get some magic at the shrine, and then maybe we'll defeat this boss. Oh, like the Dead King just captured another city.
Yeah, we accidentally almost ran. If you roll wrong, we almost ran into the king.
Yeah.
Like ended the game real quick. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and each edition like changes things up. They all use the same basic game system, which is great because once you learn one, you're already kind of more than halfway there to learning the next. But like the Forest of Adramon, rather than having this Dead King, you have this sorceress lady who is she's sort of taking over the minds of the people in the forest and the various towns and stuff like that. So you're sort of wandering the forest and you're trying to get pieces of relics so that when you gather all the pieces of various relics, you bring them to these ancient battle sites. You reforge the relics so that you can then bring the relics to her and fight her in her city. and then the 4th one in the series, which is, oh my God,
this is the big one. Be careful, don't hurt yourself.
The box is huge. The domain of Mirzz Noska. This is like if you're into like your gothic fantasy, this is the one with vampires and blood and ghouls and it's like this vampire lord is kind of he's building up power through blood by destroying villages, and you have to wander around and do basically same sort of thing. There's a timer. You got to do all you have to in all these games. You're trying to get strong enough to go.
Yeah, so I remember that's what we're trying to do, right? We're basically trying to level up so we can fight the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because there's other bosses along the way too. Because we were fighting some bosses to get a little bit stronger.
Yeah, and the whole point is to level yourself up and to power up in time for that final battle so that you can win that big final battle. Because if you don't power up enough, you're going to get your ass curb stomped by the final boss because the final bosses are pretty tough. The 3rd one in the series, this is the expansion, and it's still in shrink wrap because I haven't played this one yet. But the Sands of Shirax is pretty cool.
That's like desert, I guess.
This is the desert setting, and because it's a desert, of course, there has to be a giant sandworm, which there is. This one introduces caravans and multiple endgame objectives. There's 4 different sort of nations, and you can decide which nation you're going to work for, and each one you win the game a different way. Some of them, the objective is like make sure all the other nations get destroyed by the giant worm. Others, there's a bunch of different bunch of different
That's
varieties.
That's kind of cool.
So as you already know, because we've talked about it off camera many times, I'm just all about this game series right now.
It's a lot of fun. I'm hoping me, you, and Chris get to like kind of go through all of them in a like I hope we get to play them all like through. I hope we can.
That's the plan.
Yeah, because it would just be fun to kind of plow through them.
Yeah, and again, for like people watching or listening, you can play with up to 6 players. So they are full cooperative games that you can play with a big group, and it's fun in a group. We're having a nice time in the group. I'm enjoying it. But they're also like fully solo games.
Yeah, which
as
is
well.
why you got them in the first place.
Exactly. Oh, and there's even
Oh my God! And he found another one.
there's even the campaign book. The second campaign book is going to be the Kickstarter launches in a couple weeks, but the first one is already out. It's enormous.
Yeah, it's really insane how big that is.
I know. Yeah, Tig has gone through it all already. It's basically kind of a gigantic choose your own adventure book with more rules and stuff.
Yeah, it's actually really cool because when I was looking through it, it was amazing that I don't know how they laid it out. I don't know how many people they had that had to try to keep that in order.
Oh God.
With the whole like, well, no, now you got to go page 63, but then go back to 29 and 105, and I'm like, holy Christ, like this whole book is filled with that.
It's huge.
Yeah, like who's laying that all out?
And then as you're doing all that, it's like it's all the like battles and like you're gonna chapter through chapter. It gives you the maps that you're gonna play on and new enemies, and so you're playing through the game as you would normally the game, but with this whole story. Because typically these games, the Hexplorate games, there isn't a story. It's just here's the situation, here's the land, here's the situation, here's the big bad guy. Go wander around and have adventures until you're ready to fight the bad guy. Which is I love that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like that Elder Scrolls kind of.
Yeah. It's like Elder Scrolls.
Here's a world. Go wander
just
around.
wander around until you gotta fight the guy.
Yeah, which is lots of fun. Which I guess I see time. I guess it brings us back to the beginning, which is no, in fact, it is not pathetic to play board games by yourself. Damn it, I absolutely love it. It's a great time, and it's a nice way to get my face out of the screen.
Agreed.
And there's lots of great board games out there, solo board games. I'm sure if you punch solo board games into YouTube, you will find lots and lots of videos from people who have all sorts of really great recommendations. That's how I found a lot of these, is by just searching what other people are recommending. And everything that I've gotten comes very highly recommended. So I have yet to be disappointed because I've only focused on like the creme de la creme.
Creme de la creme.
So my throat's getting dry. Let's end this.
Let's get the hell out of here and we'll go play some games.
Sounds good. Peace.